Good evening. Call to order the Monroe Public Schools Board of Education work session. Today is Tuesday, August 11th, 2026. And the time is 5:31 p.m. Jamie, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Heck,
Here.
Mr. Dinkins.
Here.
Ms. Myers.
Here.
Mr. Sabadini.
Here.
Mrs. Tarasi.
Here.
Mrs. Williams.
Yes, here, sorry.
Will you please stand for the pledge? Well, I probably don't need to say this, but I will. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. There are 2 cameras in use this evening, as usual, one focused on the Board of Education, and another one that may be used during any public commentary or presentations. By participating in this meeting, you acknowledge that you may be captured on video. Thank you for your understanding and for joining us tonight. Next up is discussion items. I'll turn it over to Superintendent Shaw.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Our first item is a staffing update, and so I'm passing around to each of you. So take one and pass it on, please. Our current positions in our district that are from bus drivers through the buildings to our staffing positions and what they look like. And so if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to take a moment and walk down through this. So for our bus drivers, and again, I want to start with bus drivers. They begin and end our day. We have 28, going right down to, we have 32 regular and special education bus drivers. We have 34 total routes, okay? So we're in need of 2 more drivers. We currently have 3 sub-drivers and need to have 8. And what those 8 drivers do is they help take care of athletics. And or if a regular driver takes an athletic trip, then that sub takes over for that driver. So at any given moment, we'll have 4, 5 athletic trips going on. And or last year, we also had an average of 2 drivers off every day just about. So we have to have those sub drivers. You can also see on this document, we have 3 office staff who are also bus drivers. So we do have that so we call it that second layer of support if needed. We're trying to really not have them drive. They accumulate a lot of hours through training and then just doing their normal jobs. So drivers in training, I think this is important to know. We have 4 currently in training. They've hired 2 more this past week, and then the pending applications. And so when it goes through a pending application, it's do all of the reviews as far as background checks, everything like that, to then go, okay, we can now officially hire. And so we're looking at a staffing of 42 full-time 42 drivers. And so if you think about subs and all together. So the good news is that, and you saw it in the board briefs, we have some drivers that are already, one that was living in Texas and coming back and just needs to pass 1 test. So we feel confident that we'll be fully set on the first day of school with 34 drivers and then continually building in. And so she's doing a great job of bringing people on for bus drivers. Now, as I go through, I'm going to ask Terry to take and talk about our elementary buildings.
So as you can see on the list that we have here, Custer is still in need of 2 special education teachers and assistants. Hollywood is needing to hire 1 special education teacher, 1 interventionist, and again, assistants. Manor is looking for a health liaison and assistant. Raisonville has 1 special education teacher position open, and they also need assistants. Waterloo has 1 special education teacher position open, 1 interventionist position, and they also are in need of assistance. When we look at Cantrick, there is an opening for a social studies teacher. They are interviewing for that position on Friday. And it says here they had 1 special education teacher position open and that an offer was made to a candidate and that they were awaiting a response, and they did receive that response shortly after this was sent, and that candidate did accept the position. So that makes that one full.
If you could take a moment and dive into why we don't have a number in front of assistants.
Yeah, so assistance, figuring that out is a big puzzle. So each school received its assistant staffing allocations yesterday. Yesterday was principal's first day back to work officially. They've been working all summer, but yesterday was their official first day back. And so now they're working through their allocations to determine their specific staffing needs and vacancies. So the process for understanding how many assistants you need in your building is much more complex than simply assigning a set number of hours to an assistant. First, principals have to consider their different funding sources that they have for their allocations. So they have general fund assistants that are assigned to their buildings. That includes how we provide each young 5 and kindergarten classroom with an assistant for the day. Also within the general fund assistants are lunch assistants and breakfast assistants, and they receive a number of hours for that allocation. Buildings also receive a 31A assistant allocation. Those 31A assistants are assigned to work with at-risk students. And within that, the building gets a number of hours. So for example, the number of hours allocated to Waterloo, I believe, is 150 hours of 31A time. So there's that allocation. And then there's also an allocation for student-specific support. And so within that, students have assistant hours assigned to them based upon an IEP need or a 504 need, which could be anything from medical to some type of anxiety or whatever it is in their 504 plan that they need support for. And then those student-specific hours, they can range from a student who gets 10 hours of support a week all the way up to a student that gets 37.5 hours, which is considered full-time. So we call those kids door-to-door. But there's that range in there. So determining that actual number of assistants that you need in your school requires those principals to piece together those allocations while also considering an employee's schedule and the trainings that they've had. So to put some context to that, just to give you some examples of what that looks like actually in the building, a principal may have a kindergarten assistant for a classroom that has 25 hours assigned to them. That's typically what our kindergarten young 5 assistants have, is 25 hours a week. And then they may choose to work an additional hour and a half a day, which would be another 7.5 hours a week as a lunch assistant. So they're doing the 25 hours kindergarten assistant, and then they're also doing 7.5 hours a week as a lunch assistant, giving them 32.5 hours total. Another example might be a student who's in a first grade classroom who has 20 hours of time assigned to them based on their IEP. And maybe that assistant wants to be a full-time assistant, so they are able to be offered an additional 17.5 hours of 31A time, making them a 37.5 hour a week employee. So there's all these different pieces that principals have to put together. On top of that, they then have to look at the assistants that are returning to their building, the assistants that have left their building, what the vacancies are, and again, like what the different trainings are that those assistants have had that make them able to accept certain positions. So They're working on this right now. It is a process, and I know, the principals want to have those numbers and the different positions that they have available. They want to have that information available ASAP so they can get people hired to fill any vacancies they may have. So they all do have assistant openings in their buildings, but at this time, we just don't know the number. And I don't know if I totally confused people or not, but
Yeah. So that's why you'll see, like on Friday, we have our event at Waterloo is really so we can bring in people as go through the process and work to get them hired and then get into trainings that would be available these next 2 weeks prior to school starting. In the past, what fairly would happen is a building, and I remember specifically one building last year, the administrator literally on the phone calling to line up people after they had figured out, okay, I'm going to need probably 6 more people because I've already done all the math, move people around to accommodate my hours. So everything is based off of hours. The other variable that comes into play that we don't ever fully know is, so when we're finishing up the year, we have our students coming out of the preschools and into our buildings. So we'll have an idea who's going to need an assistant, but how much time, that's all given to us as in the month of June. And so that's why when we come walking back, like, okay, we're going to need more supports. From a funding mechanism, understand that if it is a person that has an IEP, that cost is covered. It's 1 year in the rears. I mean, we would see those monies back next year, but that money is covered through the ISD for us. So when it comes to the general fund, again, that's probably the big one we've always talked about. From a general fund side of it, it's about, you have the cafeteria coverage, so you have people in the cafeteria, you're gonna have people out on the playground, you're gonna have people that are going to be taking and standing at the door as kids are coming in, getting them to their classrooms, right along then what we talked about in the past practice of in the Wi-Fi and kindergarten rooms, that support.
Not to cut you off, but the breakfast and lunch assistance, the time that they're serving the kids, that's charged to food service. But the playground and the meter greeters is kind of what we call them in the morning. That does come out of general
I
fund.
forgot about that, so it's only recess. So the challenge becomes, this is why having an electronic payroll system is, they have to, you could have a person that's being paid out of 3 different funding mechanisms, okay? And so we have a way that we keep track of it, but that's also how you control your cost. And so we bill everything accordingly. So that's how the elementary world looks like. David, you want to talk about secondary, please?
Certainly.
That's on the
Monroe,
back of your paper, buddy.
Monroe High School, I'm going to go in a little bit different order. Monroe High School is short, currently 1 special education teacher. Orchard Center is fully staffed without any vacancies. And Monroe Middle School, Mrs. Todora mentioned that today they filled their Spanish position. They did interview for a counselor position. I am not sure who if they decided on someone or are going to sometimes extend the search. They are short 1 special education teacher, 1 interventionist, and 1 restorative practice coordinator or analyst.
So one of the things we haven't shared is how quickly things change. So it was yesterday that we received the notification that our restorative practice coordinator analyst had resigned. And so that's why that's out there now. So a lot of our positions this time of year are very fluid, okay? I think from a special highlight, though, is if you looked at the elementary, all of our general education classrooms are covered, which is a wonderful milestone. Mr. Payne, you want to talk about operations, and then we'll dive into questions.
Sure. So in our department, excuse me, we currently have 9 custodial cleaners, our contracted cleaners that are open. We interviewed today, and we're going to make offers tomorrow for 2 more. We have 1 assistant supervisor. We did interviews today and are also going to make an offer for that position tomorrow. Our custodial team lead, there's 2 open positions, but normally that's, I want to say, like a homegrown position. If we see someone excels or starts to do good, we offer that. We don't usually just hire for that. We have 2 maintenance positions that are open, and again, we use our maintenance contracted to fill that usually, to get them in, try them out, see how they do, and then we offer them as maintenance positions. We have 4 maintenance contracted positions open, and today we interviewed, and we probably will make 4 offers tomorrow on those. And our maintenance is our maintenance and grounds. So pretty much our entry-level maintenance position to assist our current staff and kind of fill in holes where needed based on the season. Summer, a lot of mulch, a lot of grounds, a lot of trimming, stuff like that. We do have 2 technology support specialists. We interviewed yesterday and today for those positions. We have 2 that we want to do background checks on and contact some previous employers before we make an offer. But if they all come back, we hope to make 2 offers on those as well. We have 3 technology contracted positions open, and we're planning on making an offer for 2 of those after interviews yesterday and today. So the only area that we're really not concerned, but we really need to try to get more applicants is our custodial. It seems like every couple weeks you might get 1 or 2, and then you might schedule an interview, and out of 2 or 3, you might get 1 that shows up. So we just continue posting. Wendy's done a good job helping us keep pushing it out. We try to share it on Facebook, and each week we try to interview what we have. So.
So that's what we look like at this very moment in time as we lead less than 3 weeks away from that first day of school. Like I said, you can see on here, we do have positions open. They're interviewing and moving along to try and get these positions filled. But at this time, I'll open it up for questions.
It looks like, and no surprise, that special ed teachers are a premium.
Yes, sir.
Do a couple of questions there. The special ed teachers for middle school and high school, do they require different certification than elementary school? Or is it very similar? Can they go back and forth?
I think I'm going to give you a vague answer in that there are different certifications when we interview folks. A lot of times they're early childhood, but someone who has an early childhood who would interview for a secondary position, that would not stop us from pursuing them based on the talent shortage. So there are different
And if
special
I-
education certifications.
And if I can add on,
Please.
the ISD can also submit information to MD to get an authorization for them to work outside of their certification as well to fill that vacancy. And the state is aware of the special education teacher shortfall within, I'm sure, not just our state.
Are they doing anything at the university level to get more applicants through there? Is there, or is this a shortage that's going to go on for several years?
I wish I could answer that for you. I'm not sure what the universities are doing to recruit people into those programs. I know we have a few teachers in progress of getting their master's degrees in special education services to obtain that additional certification. So there are people out there willing, but there's sometimes some roadblocks of getting that additional education.
Is that what it requires, a master's degree?
That is one of the pathways, if they have a bachelor's degree in education, to get a master's degree with the additional special education coursework.
The other factor you have on that too is because we run a team teaching model, that they're not, a special education teacher is not the teacher of record. If you were the teacher of record, you have to be certified in that area. So if you were teaching math and you're the teacher of record, you have to be math certified. But because we do more of it's a team teaching, they're going into the classroom, you don't have to have that cert. You're just a special education teacher.
To go to the question about universities, Bowling Green State University did something that was pretty unique. All of their early childhood folks 2 years ago left with an early childhood to be like the classroom teacher and also a minor in special education, which was really thoughtful of them. However, what they found is that that minor required additional courses, and folks were not interested, and their numbers in that their early childhood programs dwindled a little bit. I mean, it was great for those candidates to come out because if they didn't find a classroom job, they had a minor in a field that has a lot of vacancies. However, we were disappointed when we went back to Bowling Green this year because they were no longer requiring that because of the lack of interest in the challenge. So.
Are you on?
So I would have waited till board member commentary to address it, but since we're talking about staffing at the present moment, we used to see, unless I'm missing it, we used to see resignation letters in our board brief packets. I don't think I've seen a resignation letter for months now.
Okay.
So it just gives us a flavor for why someone's leaving. I mean, we all know that there's two sides to a story issue, but it does give us a flavor. So I don't know when that stopped, but I feel like we really haven't seen them for quite a while.
Yeah, it's been
Okay.
probably at least a year, maybe
Yes.
more.
I can speak to when it was where you guys, when it was decided that you weren't going to vote on the
Yeah.
resignations. At that point was when
Yeah.
we stopped including it with the board packet because you were no longer voting on it.
Mhm.
But I can still get that.
Some kind of data.
I'd like to see them for sure.
No, we'll add that each week. It'll be part of the board briefs.
Okay.
Part of, I would get it with the board packet stuff. So
Right, I mean,
board brief-
HR can each week put it in their board briefs.
Board packet.
Well, no, so that way, because because of the quantity, it'll just be in your board brief, so each week, like, we had 3 resignations last week, here are the 3 resignations, it's just, each week, just place some board briefs for you.
I just didn't think we typically put that kind of information in board briefs.
It's no difference between a board brief or
We just never did. I'm just
especially
asking.
emailing it
Yeah,
out,
yeah, we always got it in the packet.
Yeah,
Here's
I
what we
just
got.
didn't know what the
Either
difference
way,
same thing.
same,
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else with any comments or questions?
I do. The other day when we were sitting here, which kind of dredged this up, was we were talking about, there was Andy, you or someone had mentioned that we needed to hire 40 behavioral assistants or whatever their category was, which kind of triggered like, wow, how do we all of a sudden from June, having discussed the staffing all the way up till the end of June, when the budget was decided, now we're saying at the beginning of August, and we're like 40, just in those categories. That's a lot of staff. That's not just a few staff. So, I pulled up the projected numbers that we were told of how many staff you needed in each of the categories. I can understand you might need another one here and there, but I have a difficulty comprehending that you weren't aware you might need up to 40. So that part of it didn't make sense to me, because I'm looking at these and I'm like, where did they go in this chart that said, this is the staff that we need? These were all the green and the reds. I picked up the one that had the most green, so I'm assuming that was the most updated one. Like, if you thought you needed 40 more of them, I don't understand why they wouldn't have been budgeted in the budget we just passed for this year. So I understand that we didn't know the 31AA and understand, or whatever the 31Ms or those grants, but I pulled up their categories, and there's a lot of things you can use that money for. And there's a lot of ways that you can use that money for different things. So again, 40 staff is a lot. I just didn't understand how we went from this less than 2 months ago to needing that many. So I thought, okay, so maybe I'm missing something. So I went to this chart that we were provided. And we had been given it updated a couple of times. And although, I got to hold it really far away to see it because it's really tiny, but I went through there looking for where anybody said that this is the amount of staff that would be needed in any of these buildings. And someone's going to have to show me, because I can't find it. And these were the 2 documents that we were given that says, this is what we need to staff our buildings. It wasn't like, this is what we need to staff our buildings, and hey, just a heads up, we might need 10, 20 more or 40 more. I think that would have changed the conversation on what our budget items look like. And I understand we use the word in technology, the word that is coming out of a grant, and I understand that. But grants have a purpose that can serve greater purposes as well. So I think that we need to look at how does this impact the overall funding. So it's not like, okay, it's not general fund, therefore we don't have any say in it, because we have to look at all of it. And bringing in 40 more staff is a lot. I'm just like, where did all this come from? So I'm like you, where's all the resignations? Where do we see these big quantity of resignations? I think I've asked it every week I was here. I've asked about staffing. I've asked about resignations. I've asked about hires. So I know you all are very intelligent people. You've all been doing this a very long time. Just to say we had no idea we would need the quantity of staff we need, I doesn't make any sense to me considering we talked about it nonstop for months. I'm just trying to understand how the two fit together. And to me, it doesn't. I don't know how it does. I get it, custodial, you have a lot of turnover in there. I didn't even mention custodial because I know you have a lot of turnover in there. I know you've had some turnover in your maintenance. I haven't mentioned some of the teaching positions because I've seen that there has been some teaching positions that there has been some turnover in. I didn't mention special ed because we know the special ed need is higher. So therefore, I didn't mention any of those. It's it was, I think, Andy, you mentioned it as behavioral
No.
and / assistance.
So these, and I'm going to ask Terry to hop in right here. No, these are, when we talk in terms of classroom people, these are classroom assistants. When we talk, the certification levels, that's not 40, okay? So like, for example, RBTs, we have 13. Right now, we don't have 13. We have how many RBTs?
10.
10, okay? So we're down 3 there. And so that's what gets filled. When we get to the support, I don't want to call it support staff, it's classroom, it's the aides. That's what we're really diving into here. And so,
I'm looking at it. I'm not mixing certified staff with uncertified
Can I
staff.
ask a clarifying question? Is the document that you had up with your paper clips? No, ma'am. The other one.
This one?
Yep. I believe that's our savings document. I don't think our aides are on there.
I'm just asking. I
but-
was looking for RBTs because that's what Andy had mentioned, and he mentioned behavioral. And then I asked the question, what is their role? Do they have a dual
Right,
role? Can they
but I don't
provide
think-
for instruction in the classroom?
I don't
Because
think
I
that
want
40
instructors in the
though,
classroom.
that 40 though is not, those are not the positions that are on that savings sheet. And I might be incorrect, but I do feel like that those 40 aides or whatever we're going to call them, paraprofessionals, like those are budgeted. Those aren't new, hey, we need these.
I'm just asking where they were at in all these documents of staffing stuff that we got. Like, I just want to know where they are, because, for example, on this one, it had, wait, second page, sorry. On this one, it said, how many RBTs do we need? And it said 11. There was 2025, there in 2025, 26 school year, so last school year, it was identified that there was 11 that were needed. And for 26, 27, it was identified that all 11 were needed and they were going to stick there. Now, when you talk about the certified, it listed 2 remaining at 2. So, I'm a big component of instructional assistant that's going to help with the education of the students. And so I'm trying to figure out where does this all fit
So,
in?
I'm sorry, if I may. I don't believe on any of the staffing documents that we communicated when we were talking about the budget, I don't believe that we included the classroom assistants because the number is so complicated, because it's based on hours and not number of people. And it was difficult for us to discern in a way that would be meaningful in the conversation. So RBTs are a separate part of assistance that's more quantifiable. Those are actually 11 people, and it's not necessarily based
what
on
I can
hours. So on all those documents you're referencing, the classroom assistants and the special needs assistants and all of that is not listed on there because we didn't have all of the allocations from the ISD. We didn't know what all the students were going to need. Everything hadn't been
I want to follow up with her, please.
necessarily projected out by the number of people. I have budgeted a number of hours based on historical needs. So that's why you can't find a number to tie what has been discussed as far as what we have open. Because in that earlier conversation in the spring, there wasn't a meaningful way to relay what the needs were at that time and what we anticipated.
So what's interesting is so you had this many 30 students in a classroom, right? Most of the time, that's the classroom that moves on. We understand that there have been some variations, but they all came from within our system minus the the influx of a small amount that came in this year. So those all had IEPs, 504s. They were already identified in a classroom as having needs. So I can understand for you saying that we had an influx of some needs in a classroom, but to say we didn't know that there was going to need 3 staff in a 4th grade classroom that had the same students that already had those needs in 3rd grade, that doesn't make sense to me. You do know those things. The only thing you don't know is what's coming into kindergarten, most likely, any of the new people that come in. But I don't see how that says, we can't tell you how many we might need. Now, maybe the exact number, I understand that. But to go from our entire budget of a staffing conversation to say, well, all of a sudden now we didn't include these because, I mean, I think that we're adults here. We're capable of understanding what you're capable of communicating. And,
But
you know,
that's-
I think it could have been some information that we could have used at the time.
But the variable comes, I shared the number 40 with you because that's our target number we need to work towards because it's the variance of hours. So we look at here, all of us could be applying and all of us might be only able to put in 10 hours a day or only 15 hours. It's the number of hours that we're talking about. When it comes to the positions that you're referring to on that page, as we've said before, that's what's in the budget. That's what we're going with. If we said, so right here, we're looking at, for example, BCBAs. That's a great example. We just had a resignation from a BCBA. We said we're going to have 2, we're down to 1. So we're going to need to hire 1. RBTs, how many did we say? RBTs on, looking at this doc, was 11. We're not at 11, so that's what's going to get filled. Those are on that list because those are people that we can, this Friday, begin to interview and try and get in here. When we look at just classroom aides, the supports in the classrooms, as Cassie said, it's the variance of hours becomes that factor. And that's why when we talk about how many staff we employ, we can talk about heads, head count. Well, that's a huge number but down in the support staff area of aides, but when you look at the number of hours, that's a different, full FTEs, that's a whole different creature. So the target is that but then when you think about the number of buildings that we have, that's why it's very easy to go, okay, well, that building is going to need 5 people. And what the other part that we are always focused on too is we have to have people as substitutes for aides. And because if we have a student that has an IEP, has other supports, we have to have people ready to go into those positions when people aren't there. And when you think
But
of number,
don't the sub list provide that?
what's that?
Don't you have a sub list that provides that?
So, but that sub pool that people that we have, we always have to keep it stocked because there's sometimes that some of our people that would be a sub, they could actually turn into and be just a regular full-time person. So you take that list of roughly 40 people we want to try and get on. Some of these people are going to be they're going to be subs. So we're like, hey, we got you in our system. And when we call, you think about the number of buildings, number of people we have in as a substitute person, as was described. In each classroom, you have a person in kindergarten and 1st grade. Then we have our one-on-ones with our students. Those positions right there, at any given moment, you might have 3, 5 people out in a day. So that's why you need that supplement, especially when it comes to the one-on-one assistance that are provided to a student. So again, we are making sure adherence to what was in the budget. On this. So we're not going above when you look at that posting there, those are positions that we have vacant right now. We have RBTs vacant, we have BCBAs.
I think we have to understand the perception that's out there. It was very public, the need to cut staff. People lost their positions. They need to cut the budget. I mean, that was in the community. Everybody heard it. And everybody's like, okay, we got to do it. And now people are like, so you're having this big, huge hiring after you just said that you had to do all that? And I'm like, okay, what's my answer to that? Why do we need to do that? If you tell me that it's to increase like we did in 2025 or when the budget got overdone we're going to raise grades, so we spent all this money to raise grades, and you're telling me you're going to put assistants in the classroom to work one-on-one so that they can learn, I would be like, okay, that's something, then why didn't we have that included at the beginning? But, when we're looking at behavioral staff and things like that, I think that's a different story. But again, it's perception.
we're
We
not-
are doing a huge you said that they were behavioral.
I did not.
Okay.
On the other
I'll
day,
go back.
I look at it and I said, we are hiring 40 support. And on that document, what you read, you went straight to behavior techs and RBTs, okay? That's where your eyes went. We still have
that's
crossing
because
guards.
I thought
we have
that's what-
crossing guards on there, and we also have building
But I
support.
also told you why I didn't bring up any of those other groups, because we have seen the turnover. I've seen all those turnover. I did not see turnover in assistants. I did not see turnover in these other categories. And seriously, Andy, the reason I went to that is I thought that's what you said, so my apologies if I misunderstood that. But I did not see turnover in 40 staff that we need to replace, which is why I didn't bring up any of those
The
other ones.
behavior techs, the ones that we refer to in the behavior side, we have an allocation that we brought to the board back in June. And that's the allocation we're living with and working with. So that's that number. So those are just key positions that we need to have filled. But when you think about that, when I say that 40, that's our target, the vast majority is down in the aides.
You know where I saw it? On the posting. It listed behavioral techs and whatnot. That's where I saw it.
Right now, we only have,
Yeah, that's where I saw it. Behavioral techs and that's where I saw it.
right now, we only have 3 people engaged in the conversation. So let's, if anybody else, do you have anybody, Gary or Stacy, anything you want to ask?
I don't.
Because I have a question I have. Carrie, do you have anything? So with the assistants, I'm assuming we had some sort of historical data on what we use as assistants. So would that have been something we should have had as part of a conversation? Did I miss part of a conversation? Because now all of a sudden we're talking about the assistants, and I understand that's probably the last. I understand how you're explaining it. It's the last thing that goes, because when the principals come back, they've got to look at all what IEPs, everything that's in the. But I would think you have some historical data that says this is how many assistant hours we're going to need on a average year. Some years it might plus 10, minus 10, but I don't, would that have helped if we would have had that, Darla, as part of the conversation?
Yeah, I definitely think that would have helped, because it wouldn't have felt like this is an add-on. And that's a perception.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
bridge a
And
gap
that's
there.
where I
Trying to bridge a gap.
I appreciate it. I'm just saying to you that when you look at the flyer, it says assistants, crossing guards, behavior technicians, RBTs, okay? The behavior techs, RBTs are to fill positions that are on our list that are not filled. Okay, kind of like what Dave was showing there. When it comes to the assistants, that's classrooms, again, those are positions that we have to have backups in place. And so, and so we do have openings, and because you do have people that their hours shift, and so as each building figures out what they have to do, that's where it shifts. It's not like their hours. I think the best answer I can give you though is their hours didn't increase from last year to this year. The
That would
only
help.
spot that would have increased is if a student comes in that with an IEP. Kindergarten, we have students that transfer in, and that's the other factor too, is we will have a lot of transfers into our system this year from outside of our system that will require that independent facilitator or that one-on-one. And so that's what we're trying to get staged for, because it doesn't do us any good on that very first day to go, okay, well, oh, look, I'm going to need 3 one-on-one assistants, and we have nobody.
Why do we anticipate that? I'm just asking.
That would go back to the historical side
So,
of move-ins.
to her point though, when you're just talking
Yeah.
about when you see the flyer
Yeah.
in the community, those acronyms,
Yeah.
if I asked my mom what those acronyms meant, she would, God bless you, Mom, I don't think she's listening. She wouldn't know what those meant. She would just see hiring.
Yep.
So that's where maybe what Darla's saying is the community might perceive all of a sudden that we're hiring people, when in fact we're really not hiring teachers, but we don't really, that's not seen in the acronym words. So I think if you're in the general community, you might, that could be misconstrued. I don't know there's a good way to explain that to people, but until you get in this acronym soup of all this stuff, you don't really know, which is, I would say, a large percentage of our community. I see, Gary, you're ready to get up to the mic there. Go ahead.
I'm listening.
No, you're ready.
I'm going to simplify this. Please tell me if I'm wrong, okay?
Please.
We're talking 40 bodies that are going to divvy up X amount of hours that you allocated. Is that correct? Does not necessarily mean that everybody's going to get 40 hours a week.
Correct.
Somebody might get 10 hours. Somebody might get 8 hours. But we need 40 bodies spread out as assistants to cover X amount of hours throughout the schools. Is that correct? So we're not necessarily hiring a person full-time with benefits and everything that goes with it.
But don't we have assistants already?
We
Where'd they
do.
go?
Just a second, Darrell. I want to make sure that so I can get corrected here if I'm wrong. Is
So I
my
think-
thinking correct?
Yes, I think your thinking is well, yes, I don't think your thinking is correct. The only thing that I do not know for sure is the number of 40. I don't know what
Okay.
the number is that buildings will need until they look at allocations, staff who are returning, incoming students that they have, all of those different factors that they have to piece together. They have to put things together, contact the assistants that they had last year, see if they are coming back and, what their wish is for themselves in terms of hours in their schedule, then see what they have left over, piece those things together, see who they can hire to fill those. But like you said, like somebody might just want to be a lunch assistant for an hour and a half a day and be employed for 7.5 hours. We have people who do that. So, that's one person. Another person might want full-time at 37.5 hours. So the number is hard to quantify at this time.
So on Monday, the principal's going to come in. I'm going to make up a scenario, and he says, Terry, I need 100 hours, and I need these hours to be allocated zip, zip, zip. Now you're going to allocate bodies to cover that.
So the principals
Correct.
get their allocations from us. They
Right.
already have their allocations. So yes, so they have that and they're working with that right now.
And then they'll tell you, okay, I think I need a lunch assistant, and I need a crossing guard, I need something else for these X amount of hours.
Right.
So it's not necessarily bodies. It's
Correct.
bodies divvying up X amount of hours.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay, now I follow what's going on. Okay.
And one last point that may bring more clarity. I use that number of 40 as it's more a goal. Because we need to build in, it's back to the sub side. There's been times in the last few years that we'll have students come in, it could be pick the month, and they need a support, and then we're scrambling. And so our goal is like, let's get them on. Now as a sub, you're not getting paid. You're like, yeah, I'll sub for you. So it's more that we have people identified. So that's where it comes to. But the big thing is, there's no more hours being provided this current year than was provided last year in totality. And when it comes to like the RBTs, those positions were already in our budget work said how many is going to be that. So that didn't shift either. So, but I did write down, Brian, to your point about clear language and postings. Yep. So. We can still break out the words.
People who misconstrue anything, but.
It sounds like a puzzle that's always changing.
Yeah.
Like the assistants that are coming back and staying, and then the students that come and go. So it's always a changing, so it's hard to get exact numbers.
Do the assistants float between buildings, or are they assigned to a specific building?
They are assigned to a specific building.
Are they through Edge's staff, or we hire those, they hired directly?
Directly.
Directly?
Yes, we have a collective bargaining agreement with the paraprofs.
Okay.
So that X amount of hours, you've already figured into our budget.
Yes, I do have assistants budgeted in all those categories.
Okay.
As far as 31A, general fund, lunch and breakfast.
You can see where this get a little confusing for us. Okay,
It's a lot.
yeah, I get it. Took me a while, but I got it.
So that was my whole point in bringing this up. There's a perception out there that we need to be mindful of, that we're not We're clearly communicating that we didn't just, go through all that and then bring all these in, the first part. Second part is a clarification on who we're bringing in and the reason for them. And that's what a staffing discussion's about, so.
Appreciate it.
Okay. So move on to the substance policy procedure review.
Okay, there you be. Take one and pass it on. So the first item that's coming your direction was around the idea of policy, okay? So in looking at our policies, policy 5530 is the drug prevention policy. And I'm pulling this one out because if we read through that very first paragraph, in accordance with federal and state law, the board hereby establishes a drug-free zone, school zone, that extends 1,000 feet from the boundary of any school property. The board prohibits the use of possession, sale, and so forth. This is the student section, okay? This is not anyone else. This is student specific. When you dive down through further, it gets into, and this is why we went down to letters D and E, that we have to have, provide standards of conduct that are applicable to all students, which clearly prohibit, at a minimum, the unlawful possession, sale, use, distribution, or illicit drugs and alcohol by students on the school premises or as part of any school activity. And then this came out of even last night's conversation, so that's why we said in there, CMPS Student Handbook for Code of Conduct. And then the next line to it, include a clear statement that disciplinary action sanctions up to and including expulsion and referral to law enforcement, so adding in the words law enforcement, for the prosecution, taking out the word will, shall, because shall is has to, be imposed on students who violate the school standards of conduct and description of those sanctions. So this policy, so it's not the recreation of a policy, it's taking into what we already had that calls out that school, drug-free zone, calls out that we had to already have code of conduct, and then clearly then also calling out that this would be also then mandated to be turned over to law enforcement. And then on the next page, we're going to get into, David's going to take here.
Can we address this part
Yeah.
before we move on?
Yep.
The one thing, I went back and re-listened to our last conversation to kind of refresh myself. The one thing that was very clear, it wasn't that sanctions could go up to and including expulsion and referral to law enforcement. It was, it will be referred to law enforcement for a drug offense.
Correct. That's why we put the
It
word shall
says
in there.
up to, but this says up to and including expulsion and referral. I would like it, and I thought that was what we had talked about, that it will result in a referral to law enforcement for sanctions,
So-
that it will
Yep.
refer. And addition, it could lead up to expulsion in
So
on
the
the other
first-
side, because we talked about a dual track. The first was law enforcement, it will go to law enforcement, no, nothing on that one. And then the other stuff was the track that could lead up to expulsion, what would lead you to the handbook.
And if the commas are in inappropriate places, we can change that out, okay? That's, because the way I was reading it is that up to including expulsion, that's us, and shall, and referral to law enforcement for prosecution.
I just think it needs to be
So the idea around the shall be imposed is that up to including, so there'll be some form of discipline that's low level, up to and including expulsion, and referral to law enforcement shall be imposed. So that, if you read in that context, is here's what's going to happen is that the school is going to have some form of discipline up to and including expulsion, and it's going to be handed over to law enforcement. And that shall means that's what's going to be imposed onto the student.
Could I read for you on page 57 of our handbook? It says substance abuse policy. And I know what language from the board. We will be changing that to protocol because this isn't the policy, what's in here. But it says MPS, this is what we currently have in our handbook. MPS maintains a zero tolerance policy for substance abuse and the sale of any illegal substances. We will utilize all means possible in order to enforce this philosophy. All disciplinary actions taken by MPS shall not be intended or shall not replace in any way such action as may be taken by the state of Michigan or any of its political subdivisions or agencies. So I think that's important with what both of you are saying, is that there is a dual track, and Just because there's a referral to law enforcement doesn't mean a student won't be punished in school, and vice versa.
The difference is that before, it was subjective to decide which one you wanted to do. The policy, by our suggestion, is it will be referred to law enforcement. So we have, we are drug-free zone, we have zero tolerance, drug, whatever you want to call it, will be referred to law enforcement for, what do they call them, infraction?
Citations and a fine.
Citations and whatever else they decide. So, you know, I think that ensuring, because right now, just because it says that, it didn't make it to law enforcement. And we need to ensure that if we're going to take the stand that we said last time, it must refer to law enforcement, all of them.
And that's what we've shared is that's exactly it. So in letter E, that's what's going to happen. And
But
that's
I
why-
think it should be clearer.
It is clear, up to and including expulsion, so that's your action, and referral to law enforcement for prosecution shall be imposed. So that tells us we're doing both items.
I think if you just change the order of that sentence and say referral to law enforcement for prosecution shall be imposed and up to and including expulsion
Through
through
the
the district.
through the district policy.
Code of conduct.
Procedures.
So that way, no
of
one's
conduct.
reading it and saying up to and including expulsion and up to including
Right.
law enforcement, like,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
separate.
A good way to clarify that.
Or just take that up to and including out and say discipline for the
Yeah.
district policy.
Because we want them to know that it will automatically go to law enforcement. There's no questions asked, and if you make that clear in your policy, we are a zero tolerance, I don't know if that's in here. As I know it's a drug-free zone is in here, but I don't know if zero. tolerance is.
I'm assuming that Jeremy has some watch over this because I'm assuming we could have a lawyer get involved with the student and go back to this policy, and if it's not completely, because they can parse words like, like nobody's business. So I'm assuming that you're gonna let Jeremy have a look at it.
I know that in other school district, they do hold that zero tolerance, and that they've asked or shared to their SRO that you do this, they're gonna be given a citation.
Well, maybe just a suggestion
Yep.
that Jeremy take a quick look at this to make sure that we are, because we are communicating one thing very clearly,
Yeah.
but I know that commas and sentence structure to a lawyer can become a reason. And someone could retain a lawyer if they're going to be expelled for a drug offense, right?
You might want to substitute,
Well-
instead of referral to law enforcement, citation through law enforcement.
Yeah.
So that they don't have an
For whatever.
excuse to not do
That's,
it.
that's verbiage Jeremy should take a
So-
look at.
To that
They've already
point,
said they're not gonna just, it's, the language is, we make a referral, they don't do anything, they say, well, gosh, we're not getting them. So it's, I believe now, based on this conversation, that we're all at the same table, and we're all understanding that, we support what the sheriff has put forward as a standard in order to follow his protocol, that we as a board are making a policy to ensure that we follow that. At the same time, there's a protocol to go through. And I re-listened to that meeting last night, this today, and the other thing that was in there was community service as a result associated with the infraction. So there was the citation, the fine, there was the going online and doing it, but then there was also a community service aspect of it. And what he said was, we got it, okay, you say you don't do it, when you come before us again, that's now going to be part of what happens at the next step. Because you didn't do what happened to the first step, you didn't do what we told you to do, and that can change the language of the second step, which definitely can change the language of the third step.
so I want to address board policy, so we're done. So Brian, to your point is the bold was what we added. So what I think we can do is two things. One is your letter E will either stay as written by us, and then we'll have a new G, new F, we'll push everything down, and then that it shall be, that this will be referred to law enforcement. So there'll be two separate letters right there, so it's really drawn out. But the point is that we are permitted by law to expel a student for drugs. That's what's already written in there. Leave it alone, so that'll be all by itself in letter E. A new letter F will slide all the rest down. We'll then have the required zero tolerance, and so it'll have in there that it's turned over to police per our zero tolerance for it. So it'll have that language specifically in there. Any other questions on the policy side? So that way it's all been clearly
So,
drawn out.
one of the things that I don't know if someone else had something to say.
Yeah, I understand we can expel them. What other things can we do?
We're going to get there in a moment.
Yeah. That's,
Yes.
We got a lot of, we got a lot of stuff.
So
That
as
was
a-
the other thing, that
as-
not suspending and do it in-house.
Yeah,
As
that's,
a
that's what
district,
he's
we
getting
have the authority anywhere from do nothing all the way to expulsion. So that's what the policy, why your policy stays that broad. It says we have the range of nothing all the way up to something, of expulsion.
the one thing I would recommend, because I think some of the students are probably familiar that they may get away with their first, offense and just get some type of internal and not get it referred to the law enforcement. Like we did the cell phone policy, I recommend we send something down so the parents recognize first offense, it's going to go to law enforcement.
Yep, it would, and because that's one of the requirements per this policy is that as superintendent, we have to push this information out. And so this one is a big one, just like our cell phone, like you're saying. Here are the Board of Education is taking is a very clear zero tolerance, which, and now it's more that we're implementing the requirement of law enforcement to issue, well, we're requesting that law enforcement do their part. We can't mandate anything onto them. We're going to turn it over to law enforcement, but at the end of the day, that's the best that we can do is always turn it over to them and say, please do your portion.
But they said they would do it.
I understand,
So
but I said I can't-
I trust what they put forward.
I'm not, I understand that, exactly.
Right?
We can, but I cannot go and tell them, you will do this. We're going to add, that's my point. What, we can take care of what we can take care of. Okay, so now, Gary, is there anything else on the policy? Because I want to get into the stuff Gary would like to talk about.
I promise not to get on my soapbox tonight.
You're okay, sir. Okay. So, all right, so I asked David if he would please get into the MPS zero tolerance substance abuse protocols.
Yeah, so what you'll see on your second sheet, and if we can, I'd like to start with the class one, the short page, not with just four. Yep. This was taken directly from the handbook, which is a little wordy, our code of conduct, and summarized it in bullet points, how a school responds to drugs in the building. Class one substances, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, etc. What our handbook says takes place after a first offense is immediate removal, parent notification, law enforcement referral, substance abuse team meeting, required education treatment, and then for a first offense for a class one substance for use or possession is a 9-day suspension up to expulsion. And what, Gary, I heard you mention what's on the table, based on conversations that we had last time. And that's where we would like to operate is what is the consequences or what additional things are we looking to take away or are we looking to add? Some of those things could be drug testing. Some of those things could be community service. There was discussion in here about not suspending students and sending them to in-school or detention or something from the day. All of those things are on the table right now, but what I will say is our administrators are very adamant in the fact that when a student has drugs in the building, they need to be separated. The building, the students, the teachers, everyone involved needs a break. And what that means is we don't want our students to be, I think there's administrators that don't want our students to be out for what would be almost 2 weeks for a class one infraction of possession or use in the building. But keeping them in the building, if I sell drugs to Brian and now we're both put in the same room together, Brian and I might throw down. It may not be safe. We also had some discussion about what is the expectation of the public for students who have these items in our building, if they would be okay, or a parent who witnessed this in the bathroom, Brian and David smoking marijuana, they would be okay with Brian and David staying in school. So those are the things that we would like to talk about. You'll see the same, let me count my bullets, the same 6 bullets for a first offense and second offense for possession or use or possession, and you'll see the same 6 bullets for sale or distribution or manufacturing. The only difference is the consequence. We respond to those things in the same way based on the code of conduct. I don't know if anyone else would like to add anything before we start talking about what we would like to see happen in these instances.
So to be clear, the 9-day suspension keeps them from coming before the board.
The 9-day buildings currently have the discretion to bring a student for 9 days or to expel, or I'm sorry, suspend a student for 9 days or bring them to the board. Anytime a student has large amounts of drugs on them or there is suspicion of selling, they come and see you. So our building administrators use discretion. They talk about it in that substance abuse team meeting, what is best for that student. And I would say that a lot of times they don't think that a first offense should be brought to the board for expulsion.
So you're saying a first offense of using cocaine or heroin would not, or may not be. I mean, we're looking, so
Well,
we've got
I think
marijuana, we got cocaine, and we got heroin.
they are all
right?
class
These are-
ones,
they
right?
are all class
The
ones,
federal
but-
government
but
has not dropped marijuana to a
wish-
class 2,
I
but
wish they were not that.
should
defined
a
that way, but-
student, it hasn't happened yet, and right? Should a student have cocaine or heroin in the building? I would like to think, because
Yeah.
they always communicate with us here in this building, that they would come and see you all.
Okay, okay. I'm just-
Despite how
right.
this is written, I understand that concern.
That's
Yes.
kind of the ambiguity.
I understand.
That we wish that they would be cleaned up probably to some
Okay.
degree. Not to say that I don't think marijuana is
I understand what you're
relevant,
saying.
but cocaine and heroin are definitely in a different
I
category.
would expect the law enforcement would treat those
Right.
differently,
I
even
would
though
think
they're all
you're-
class 1.
And it's fair to say that, in Michigan, alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana, you have to be 21 to buy.
Yeah.
One is considered a class 1 by the federal government, another is class 2. So I see the
Brian,
discrepancies.
to go with you had a great question earlier. One of the things you could talk about, and this is I can ask this question of Jeremy, is where does marijuana have to sit? Does it have to sit on the front page, or if you flip that page over, does it sit on that back page? And I go back to this, is that unfortunately, when we think about our community and the availability of items, not them, again, I'm not proposing we want kids doing this, okay? That's not it. But you're right, when it comes down to, there is a difference between a student having marijuana and a student having cocaine. There is a difference there. And so is that part something that can be, do we have to just more clearly define, class 1 is these types, and then push
go
that
ahead.
out there? I don't know, I'm just pushing that, giving that as an example, that would be
I
a
think it
question to be
becomes
asked.
challenging when we start wanting to declassify or reclassify drugs. And the problem with that becomes, there's prescription drugs on here. So that would be your usage of Adderalls and all those kind of things that also. So I think that we have to follow, if we're following the law, we have to follow the way it's categorized on here. And that's the way I see it, I don't think we have the luxury of reclassifying drugs, and I don't think we probably should get in the habit of doing that, because that's when you get into legal issues where, we start taking it in a way that it wasn't originally. That's my,
Yeah,
Right,
that's why I
and-
think law enforcement, it all goes to law enforcement.
Let them do their
the
thing.
prosecuting attorney, kind of sort that out.
Right.
I
So
I
the
guess
thing
what I
that-
was, I'm sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
I mean, you could do class 2 and marijuana on the back page. The other thing I'm looking at is, are you truly saying that someone who has marijuana of any kind comes to you, they're going to get a 9-day suspension? Because that's what this says.
It's what it says.
is that what you do?
Is that truly what's going to happen? Or is there,
That's not what's happening.
We are going to be consistent with what comes out of this conversation going forward.
So, I mean, that's my
And-
question, is.
I think we're
willing to be
we're spending this time to come up with a better way because I feel like the conversation with our administrators and we have to do something different.
I mean, this says right here,
But how
a
about,
kid comes in with marijuana of any kind, whether it's in a vape, in a joint, in a bag, like whatever they've got,
Edible.
9-day suspension, right there. That's what it says for the first offense.
so
So
what
I
if-
just want to clarify, like, are we truly willing to be that consistent
what if we
as administrators?
I don't like the 9 days. I would like to see a different number, but
do like
that's
in-house suspension or in-house detention or something? Would that be favorable, Carrie, or you're not sure?
I'm
5
just,
plus 4
I'm
is
just
3 plus
saying,
4.
I'm okay with this.
Whatever.
But are administrators really going to
Yeah,
be
they-
consistent with
We know that.
marijuana?
No, that's why we
One,
have to
one
fix it.
kid comes in with one
9 days is a lot.
joint
Yeah.
or one vape pen. They're out 9 days. That's what this says, first offense. I mean,
It
I
does.
just want to make sure that,
Whatever we decide here, whatever we decide, they will do.
I
So
think we felt did we not feel that was the case?
Yeah.
That we
It hasn't been the case.
Yeah.
No, but I'm saying,
Previously.
I thought as a board, we were pretty unified
I
to say
agree.
we wanted that.
I agree,
But
but
you're
I
trying to
don't
challenge,
think-
you're
I
trying to
don't think
challenge
9
that,
days is
right,
happening.
right, you're
So-
trying to challenge, is that really gonna,
I
if
don't
we're gonna
think-
say it, we had to do it.
I don't think some
I think
kid with
that's
a
what we
vape
wanted.
marijuana pen in his pocket is getting the 9 days for
But
the
we
first
could do an
offense.
in-house
I don't think it's
suspension.
happening. So that's my challenge. is-
Suspension.
And it
if
could
I
be-
may offer then this,
Yeah.
is there a difference? And I'm gonna, Darla had said this a while ago to me was, is there a difference between alcohol, tobacco, and or cocaine or marijuana or vapes? Oh, they're all doing what? Breaking the law.
Yeah.
Okay? So should we actually say, put everything on one page and just live on the back where you have your range and think in terms of what does that, instead of, so we have, you got your 3 different offenses and,
0 to 9 days do way too much ambiguity.
well, but you shorten that up. What's that first offense? What is it that we would like to have for that first offense?
I don't think any of us are saying we want to have 0.
Right, but that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
So-
just saying what it currently reads,
I understand
okay?
what you're saying, but.
I'm just saying,
if
do you
went
want-
to the back page,
Yep.
then
But-
we have a problem with 0 to 9
Well,
days.
So
And-
could
That's
I
way too much
change,
latitude.
what if I erased 0 to 9 days right now and said it will be a 5-day, which would be 1 week, in-house suspension that they will spend separated into an in-house for a first offense? That way, we're not putting them back out on the streets, we're not sticking them back out there. There is accountability, they're going to law enforcement, and they're doing everything else. How would anybody feel about that?
I got no problem with it. I guess my whole point last week was trying to get across that there has to be some type of pain involved with this, to get their attention. We don't want them to go to the next step. 9 days is a lot. Cocaine, heroin, I see it. A vape, a little bar of or bottle of alcohol or something. Darla's right. Can we do something in-house so they will not forget what they did? They don't want to do it again. Instead of putting them out on the street and let the sheriff have to worry about them. Is there other alternatives? 9 days is a lot for a marijuana vape. Is there something else we can come up with, some ideas? There's a lot of smart people here. What can we do to get their attention so we don't have to give them 9 days off and they still get their education? For a first offense, not heroin, not cocaine.
Well,
I'm
remember,
I'm surprised that you're okay with a marijuana vape. I mean, why is that? I mean, I brought up the question, cocaine and in my opinion, cocaine and heroin, those are going to be expulsions. I can't even imagine those would ever be a suspension.
agree.
Thank you.
Those would be
Nobody's going to
expulsion.
object.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
If we,
distinguish what's more than likely to happen.
Right.
We don't have
That's all.
fentanyl on here.
we don't, but so you're okay with the idea that the marijuana vape is
Just a different form.
not as serious. It sounds like you're telling me now it's not as serious as I thought you would think it was.
They're all serious.
Okay,
But if you get to the point that if you're at that age,
yeah,
and you've got cocaine or heroin,
right,
you're getting that money from somewhere.
sure,
Cocaine does not cost nothing. It
Right, right.
costs a lot.
right.
If you've got cocaine on you, you're involved in something you probably shouldn't be involved with.
Some distribution, yeah, I would think.
Probably, more than likely.
Right,
Marijuana vape, could have got it from mom and dad, I don't know.
okay.
But the point I'm trying to make is, the thing with the alcohol and the marijuana, first offense, can we find something that causes them some pain, gets their attention, so they don't want to come back a second time, without giving them a 9-day vacation and let the police department deal with them?
So do you think
know.
the in-house suspension is, I think that's a lot more painful than sending them home for a 9-day vacation.
I agree with you.
And I think I can't imagine anybody that would like that. They come to school and they're literally stuck in a room all day and they can't do anything else except,
They got,
I think so, but
got-
again, I'm not 15 anymore.
bring a bag lunch, you got a
Would,
video.
would it be,
Classify stuff,
would-
and now you're reclassifying.
would it
Would
be,
that reclassify?
You're putting marijuana in a different classification.
Oh, I meant to, I misspoke. I said, as a first offense, could we look at any offenses? Do we believe that an in-house suspension is more severe than some of the suspensions? It was just an idea. I wasn't sure how he felt about that. Excuse me for misspeaking on the
No, I just want to make sure
Could-
you're not saying that, right? 'Cause-
No.
Because the federal government has given us these
Yes.
designations.
Right.
They're
So
not a
we'll start
choice,
calling
they're a
them class
designation.
1, class 2.
so could I suggest maybe honoring, I guess, the wishes of the administrators and honoring the wishes of the board, where it is 5 days and because I do think our administrators and our students need to understand the seriousness of the students definitely need to understand the seriousness of it. So sticking with the number of 5, but allowing our administrators to determine you're going to be home for 2 days, you're coming back to do 3 days sitting in a room. And you're going to be doing 5 total, but it does allow the building to breathe a little bit. And something else to think about too, and I know that no students are listening right now, but there was
I can guarantee it.
there was a time when a student was brought into this room for a third strike on tobacco. And I must have had 5 heads because that's how I was looked at by bringing a student to the board for a third tobacco offense. At least that was my interpretation. So that might need to be looked at as well. Like our current policy is 2 strikes for marijuana, unless you're selling or unless we think you're selling and have a large amount, but it is 3 strikes for a cigarette. I don't know if that's appropriate, and based on what conversations that happened, it didn't seem like the folks who were on the board thought that was appropriate either.
So you're. so
Tobacco
you're
is on the
saying-
second page.
So you're saying that
Second page.
So you're saying
Class
that
2.
there,
It's not.
It's
You're talking vaping,
it's
tobacco.
it's a class 2.
but,
We need to list it up.
so you're saying,
It's in the handbook, but not on these cliff notes.
so
Yeah.
you're saying that when it came to tobacco, third strike brought you here, but when it came to drugs, it did not send you here. I'm very confused on that. Because we were like, that was our biggest problem was. we
Second
were
and third
like-
offenses for marijuana.
But that wasn't consistent.
It was not.
So when we found out that that was being inconsistent.
That's fair.
And that wasn't being done, and then out of the blue, you show up with someone with 3 cigarette or vape.
Because we were trying to be
"What?"
consistent after we were
just-
after we were
it made no
inconsistent.
sense.
I understand.
Right, more
So,
inconsistent.
What David's
Everybody got brought in.
The nice thing about what David is proposing is that it's like this. Today I gave, brought in something, gave it to Gary, and then Gary snitches me out. And so now, only because she's sitting out there, Angela's like, okay, Andy, you're going to do Monday, Tuesday in school, you're out of school the last 3 days of the week, and then, but you're gonna go and do your 3 days of out of school at the beginning and come back, so that way we're not together in school. So that,
So, yeah, that makes sense.
that would give
The snitch could be, yeah.
Yeah.
that gives the break, it gives and it,
Responsible party.
but the other part that it helps with is, it's, you have to manage the number of students that are in the in-school suspension room, too.
Yeah.
That's a.
Well, the hope,
another
the
factor.
hope is that decreases as
Well,
this becomes a thing.
Sure,
We
but that's the part
understand
that,
with everything, there's pain involved. And it's not just pain.
Do we have a
Yes.
staff member for that already?
Yeah.
yeah, it's already done.
And I would say cocaine, heroin, anything that's being sold, distributed.
Yeah.
That needs to go straight to the,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
expulsion. Get them
Yeah.
out, expel.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
can appeal it if they need to for some crazy reason, but
So the definition of that is what became ambiguous because there were things that we saw that we thought met the criteria that we were informed that didn't feel like it met the criteria. So there was a unclear. So for me, it's more of if you have beyond a single use, you now fall into a whole different category, which leads you to sale and distribution or, because I remember the whole, you can't call it this, you can't call it that, but if you have more than a single use on you,
We had the
Then-
kid with the backpack full of drugs.
and
Okay.
do we
Trying
need
to be
spell it out,
diplomatic
cocaine
and like-
heroin, or should we say like narcotics or?
In
that's
the,
like-
in the handbook, it
That
says,
was it.
there is a list of definitions in the handbook for Class 1.
oh, I have it here.
We haven't talked about meth or,
Class 1 includes but not limited to marijuana, cocaine, heroin, LSD, GHB, ecstasy, designer drugs, scheduled prescription drugs. And then Class 2 is including but not limited to alcohol, vapes, inhalable substances, over-the-counter medicines, or lookalikes.
Did you say fentanyl for?
I did not.
I don't think
But-
fentanyl's in, you know,
Fentanyl is obviously the issue right now.
And I think what I really, I'm enjoying how this dialogue is going, but we're always thinking and we always experience things when Mr. Heck is busted for marijuana a first time and then he comes back and he has a cigarette on him. Does that mean we're going to be taking him to the board for a second offense of a non, you
I
know,
think we might
in the
have to
same
do that to
class.
start with. Just do it to start with. I mean, we might have to take on some of those extra things to start with to let people know we're serious. And we have to be willing to take some pain too, to say, if we have to sit here for multiple days in a row in order to solve and get this under control, then I'm willing to do it.
I mean, wouldn't it be nice to not have to
I think
do
you
a
all are
public
willing
hearing
to do
for
it.
Yeah, we're all willing to do
but,
be lovely.
you
yeah.
know, if we've got to sit here for 10 of them on one night, then that's what we'll do.
Right. So
I think
everybody
every-
has to do their thing.
Absolutely. I think you're right. Carrie's right, Dollar's right. I don't think anybody wants to take the discretion away from the administration. We don't. But we're trying to find something else to get our point across to these kids, you know? Do I classify cigarettes and heroin in the same situation? Obviously not. You know, do we need to actually completely spell it out that cigarettes, alcohol, marijuana, and everything else? First offense, I'm talking first offense and not selling anything. And come up with a way, Andy had a good point. He had a good point. Give 2 days outside, come back 3 days in-house suspension. Something to get their attention. Say, you don't want to do this again.
And a big portion.
We're not
of
going to
that-
tolerate it.
And a big portion of the day is being spent, why you shouldn't do this, why you shouldn't do this, like the mantra over and over again, you know, of an education component of it.
On the.
Well, and I think that
Yeah, do the Bart Simpson, right?
what I
over Charlie
heard
Simpson.
earlier when we said the referral to law enforcement, I heard that we can't control if they write out a citation, but
oh, we can
I mean, they
encourage all day
don't
long.
work for us. We don't employ them, but can't we have an agreement? a
Oh, we
friendly
can. We
agreement
can-
with them that
no, we can go
we're
to
sending
them.
somebody to them
Yep.
for drugs,
Yeah.
that we do expect a citation.
Yep, I can have that conversation with both the sheriff and with the director, so they're aware of our board policy that we do expect zero tolerance and a citation be issued.
And they both support that.
I would think that we.
They do.
They do.
I would
So-
include Rosie in that as well.
Yes, yep, get the job. So what we're gonna do
Well,
is,
the
go
other,
ahead.
the other thing I wanted to mention is Gary said, you know, give discretion to the administrators. The only thing I don't feel comfortable with would be that zero. So like,
Yeah.
somebody comes to you for whatever it is, I don't care if it's a cigarette, vape,
Zeros and
marijuana, whatever, send them home, count it as a day out, and then decide how much they're gonna get for in-house, out of school, whatever. But zero, I don't think should be
It's
an
not an
option.
option.
1 to 5,
Yeah.
1 to,
There needs to be consistency.
I'd say just stay with the 5.
That's the main thing.
Stay with the 5. You said let the school have 2 days off
One offense.
with them away. Then 3 days in-house.
Yeah.
5 days.
5 days, it can be a mix.
Yes, exactly.
And that was first offense.
First offense,
Yeah.
not
And-
distribution.
and it will be abundantly clear to our administrators that if it is not a class 2 or marijuana,
We know they're gonna.
they're coming, they will be seeing
Likelihood
you.
of them not, of ever seeing the hallways again.
Yeah.
So if I can get into some,
We made
on-
this clear.
into the practical of how things will operate. We're going to get this board policy put together. We'll get that emailed out to you. We have a lot of great notes on the class 1, class 2. Gary, I was already kind of thinking in your direction of, on some of these, spelling them out very particularly. Others, you know, I think back to, because we know the areas that we're struggling on. We'll put together that plan. It'll get emailed out to you. You can't respond because that just creates that problem right there. But we'll bring it right back in. Understand, this is something that when it comes down to it, I don't need the board to approve this, okay? I just need more of a consensus, like, hey, yeah, okay, no one's like going, nope, I think we need to be doing this, because then we can implement it instantly straight into the student handbook, which could be on, let's see, we're at the 25th of this month. So that's not a problem right there. It'll still take on the policy, the 2 readings, but again, the enforcement of what's in place is still in play, okay? You're just calling out on board policy, like, hey, we're doing this. So that would be on the 25th of the month, and then going to operation on September.
Can I make one thing clear in this? When I went through the procedure, I got a lot of purple ink on.
Is that the student handbook? there?
That's the student handbook.
Yes, that's
One of the things that struck me is when there was a self-referred user that a student said that they are using drugs, and it says parent involvement will be solicited as soon as it's appropriate. I think that parental rights, they have a right to know what's going on with their children. We're talking about drugs. We're not talking about, I don't know what else you wouldn't tell a parent about. But if we can make clear on this, that all of these things, because there's a lot in here that I don't think is applicable anymore based on the way it's written, but
We don't-
everything should be straight up to the parent. If
We're
we can
gonna,
just clarify
we're gonna
that
go
in
through
the-
there, but that's where, we'll find out. I want to find out more
Yeah.
on that part, but no,
'Cause
we
it even
already
says-
know what the handbook has to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. The substance abuse team will meet with the student and
Yep.
parent as soon as possible. Like, you know, these are things the parent needs to know. And this was on possession with intent to deliver.
And who is
So-
the substance abuse team? Is that
I
spelled
don't know
out?
who that is.
It has evolved a little bit, but typically it is a counselor, social worker, and administrator.
Okay.
A counselor and a social worker, or one or the other.
Whoever is available at that time.
So
I mean,
it's
not every,
principal and one other person.
typically more. I know the high school makes decisions together frequently when they meet the administration and the social workers or counselors that are assigned to those caseloads. So,
Could we add something else into the student handbook with this? Whether we do this or not, you could put it in there that the board has decided to occasionally have the sheriff's department dogs go through the school searching for drugs.
Well, we can do that.
I mean, I know we could do it.
I think that might be somewhere in whether it talks about what is and what is not individual property, like lockers and the locker search portion. I think it might be appropriate.
It'd be nice to read, if a kid read that, it says, geez, they're gonna bring in the dogs one of these days, I better be careful.
I appreciate how cute you are tonight that the students are reading the handbook.
Right.
So, I do
You know what
appreciate
made me
that a
think of
great
it when I
deal.
saw,
That's like them
I got my
watching this,
moments.
that's like-
it
But,
made me
to your
think about it when he
point,
came in.
We will call out these adjustments in the student handbook. So kids.
Do what we did with cell phones, put the message out that, hey, I mean, it was all a big deal. By the time they went in school, they already knew it was a place. I saw you, and it made me think about it with ACAP was this is a safety security issue. And when I look through the funding sources, there is funding and source and money available for these kind of issues. Sorry, glad you saw you. I made me think of that because there is money available in some of these grants for things like this. So.
Okay. So I appreciate the discussion. Look for documents coming from us on this. So thank you very much. That's all I have tonight, sir.
Okay. Any public commentary, Brian?
On, are you going to speak? Okay.
Because he's afraid there will be somebody with drugs and that he will get caught up in it. Is there a way to know if a kid is smoking or vaping marijuana and the whole room stinks? Is there a chance that the innocent kid can get picked up for something? How do you prove it?
Yeah, could happen.
That was the he said, she said situation we had.
We had that already.
If that my grandson knows and he doesn't like them,
Sure.
how do you protect those kids?
I think, Yvonne, that's what this is all about. We're trying to, we know what's going on in our community. We get it. You know, we can't stop it.
That's
We're
part-
trying to get our little portion of the community under control as best as we can. That's what this is all about.
It's really a valid concern, though.
Yeah.
It
But
really is.
But it's also part of what the administrators and knowing their students and past experiences. So,
It's a possibility. Okay. Thanks, Yvonne.
We encourage the single-use bathrooms.
Okay. That concludes our agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn the work session?
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have support?
Support.
Show of hands. The Monroe Public Schools Board of Education work session for Tuesday, August 11th, 2026 is adjourned. The time is 6:57 PM. So we will reconvene at 7 for the board meeting.